Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to WCS Summer. We're going to be moving into our next match that we already talked about. I was just at the desk, and now I'm here with good old Ben the Muslim Baker. What's up?
You're a busy man, Fear Dragon, and yeah, it's really good to be here. And this is kind of cool, you know, like we get to cast a European versus a North American kind of play.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
if
Like
you want to look
situation.
at it that way.
Sure.
I mean, do you think that we've had some spats on Twitter about that? No.
Not spats, you know, like I know you've been dogpiled on a little bit here and there, but it is actually really nice to see because GunGFuBanDa is a guy that you don't really talk about being like one of the tip tops of Europe, right? But he's damn good. Cham, on the other hand, he's always been like the third place Latin America player.
Yeah.
Like I really feel he often gets overshadowed by Special and Kelazio, but he's always really good. Like I see him on both ladders as well, European ladder and NA ladder. I remember when Ladder Heroes was a thing, he was there raking in like first place on both servers every week kind of thing. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to both these guys duking it out.
Yeah, how do you feel about the kind of progress of GunGFuBanDa in the past like couple of months? Because I feel like there has been sort of a little bit of shift in his performance the past couple of months. It seems like he's performing a bit better.
I'll be super honest. He's a guy that like disappears off the radars for like months at a time, and then he comes back and he's seemingly just as good as when he vanished. Now I know he's a guy that's like gone through weird life changes. Like he's an exceptionally young guy. I remember when he was 16, he had like a full-time job and like did Starcraft 2, and he's like, oh, I can't play as much anymore. Then 3 months later, he's like, oh yeah, I'm back. But yeah, he's actually really good right now. Like he's about 6.7k MMR. I've seen him rocking really highly, and we're going to get right on into this game. So spawning in the top left side on Thunderbird as our blue Zerg player, it is Cham.
And down in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have the red Protoss player. He is GunGFuBanDa.
This is one of the new maps in the pool. Now, one thing that is very new on this map is the mineral walls. Now, you might be like, mineral walls? What? Well, these minerals, it kind of took a page from Brood War's book. Now, these minerals have 5 in the middle, as you see, in that little S-shaped formation. So if you take out those minerals, you immediately make the path to your opponent much, much shorter. Now, who does that benefit in this matchup? Well, it depends on how they want to play. I know Cham's a guy that tends to make a lot of battle units very early on, not necessarily just to all in, often just to be defensive, just so he can get up to that late stage of the game where he does really become a macro beast.
Yeah, speaking of defensive, I do hear Thunderbird talked about it as a very defensive map, oftentimes because of that like single entryway. Do you feel like that's going to lend itself with how PvZ has progressed lately toward one player or another, or even kind of what you were saying, Cham being defensive or offensive?
It's one of those things, right? Like very often you'll see a Zerg, regardless of the map, they'll be on 3 bases against Protoss. It's just, and then it's about which way does Protoss get in there to deal damage? Be it like Oracles, Phoenix, Adepts, DTs, Archons, like there's so many ways. And for a Zerg, you really have to kind of like get to it and get the scouting in there, seeing which attack is exactly you're going to be up against. It's a very tough life, but this is definitely a map where both sides can be very, very safe, get 3 bases up and running, and it very often leads to a macro game.
All right, well, we're going to see pretty normal looking openings from both of these guys. We're going to have the hatch gas pool. We're going to have Zergling speed coming out. Just 4 Zerglings being made to put some pressure on, chase back that probe. And on the other side of the map, GunGFuBanDa is doing the usual stuff and adding on that Stargate that I think every single Protoss player in the world at this point has made a staple of their play.
Absolutely. I know a lot of Zergs fear the robo openings and stuff, but I don't know if like the Zergs have all banded together and being like, oh, let's say we hate robos when in fact we actually hate Stargates. Like this will be the greatest 200 IQ plan that we've ever had. But yeah, Stargate, it's tried and true. And the thing is, there's been new openings coming out of it all the time. Like for a while, it was just Phoenixes. Then it was a Phoenix into several, or like into an Oracle to lift up the Queen and kill the drones. Now we see like 3 Oracles at a time kind of thing, followed up by an all-in. So the evolution of Protoss and their ability to be a nuisance, it's unparalleled.
Yeah, just being unexpected and keeping the Zerg players in the dark. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye out to see how Cham scouts, because I know that sometimes in the past that has been one of his weak points, but he's already getting those Overlords set up in the correct positions. He's got 1 on the pillar and 1 on the south side. And I believe that Stargate is sitting in the main base behind the mineral line, so a little bit harder to scout.
And here we get to see that GunGFu just gently looking at that wall in, just making sure that it's absolutely there, no sneakery going on, and he's actually kind of looking around for an Overlord by the looks of it. Now this Phoenix, it is going in the right spot to get those Overlords going. Yeah, I mean, this is also information for Cham though, that he sees the Phoenix, so now he can start to get ready at home. Now he doesn't need spores immediately, he has some time to put them down, but they're both in the know now about what the other guy's doing.
All Alright, we got a couple of those Zerglings making their way across the map. Just going to test the wall and look around for the third base, make sure that GunGFuBanDa isn't playing a little bit too greedy with the timing of that. And I like that it's just being active on the map, but there is the second Stargate. So you were talking about this, Ben, where there are a lot of different ways you can follow up from that first Stargate. What does the second Stargate usually indicate?
Well, the second Stargate, the fact that he made an Oracle as opposed to like just going full out Phoenix, like for a second there I was like, am I watching a Rotterdam game or something? But no, the Oracle was made. So I don't know if this is just to look like it's just going to be a standard Phoenix into Oracle play and look very, very normal, while he's going to build up a lot of Phoenixes at home. I think that's going to be the weapon of choice for GunGfu. He has been probing pretty well. It does look like he does want to take a third at some point, given that he's been building up that like Zealot and Adept count there.
So, like you said, building up those Phoenix, and with the first Phoenix already sort of revealing itself, it's about the fact that there are going to be other Phoenix pulled up back at home. GunGFuBanDa wants to keep this in the dark for at least a little bit and kind of catch Cham by surprise. Cham is just continuing to drone up. He's getting up his lair, and can we actually take a look at the queen count for Cham? So he's just sitting on those 5 queens, which is a little bit lighter considering he's also not going to have a super fast lair.
This is one of the beautiful things that Zerg players have started doing, by the way, just having Zerglings like outside the base, be it on like patrol position, just to see what's coming out of the Protoss. Like, you always have to respect them, you always have to be kind of scared of them. Now, I think Cham's done a pretty decent job of droning up, like we see here. 3 bases pretty decently saturated, but still, the weapon of choice has not been revealed for GunGFuBanDa yet. So Cham, he still needs to scout, and we see that he is making a lot of units, but yeah, he has no idea what's going to be thrown at him, because right now it could be like, oh, is he going to make mass adepts and just throw them at me? Because that's kind of the only thing that's being shown here, and yeah, we see a lot of lings being made, but they are not that useful against the Phoenix, and here, does he get a little look on it? Doesn't look like it so far, so still has no idea.
He's still just making more Zerglings, and that Hydra Den is going to be done, but there's still, this is going to be such a tough defense for him to not take too much damage. Finally, the Phoenix have been revealed, but the Queens are actually away from any Spore Crawlers, so they all just get lifted up. They each, one by one, are going to get taken out. Even the high-energy Queen's going to get taken out over here. Another Queen shows up from the back, but I don't know if it's going to be too helpful. He does manage to snipe off one of the Phoenix over there. Gets another lift up on both of those Queens, snipes off these, but he's taking a lot of damage on these Phoenix.
He certainly is, but he's getting a lot of Queen kills. The problem is this enough damage? Is this really what you wanted to get done? Now, Hydralisks are also coming out very, very soon, and now these are very, very juicy pickoffs, but that is a ton of lings that he made, given that he didn't know what he was up against, but they might be able to get some real damage done on the other side of the map. They do get a good surround on these Adepts so far.
Yeah, the Adepts all going to get picked off, and he's also segmenting off a few of these Zerglings to go over to the third base, where probes are starting to fall now. The Phoenix, it's a really, really micro-intensive thing, so you need to pull those back, help deal with the defense. It's really hard to deal with the defense. At the same time, you're also lifting up units on the other side of the map, so you're starting to see lings get into the natural. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a really, really tough spot now for GunGFuBanDa.
And look how damaged all these Phoenix are. They are meant to be the durable units that you want them to like fly in there. They can take a few shots, then regen up later on, but now he's taken 25 probe losses. All his Phoenix are bruised and battered. He had the double Robo Immortal follow-up, but against mass lings, it didn't do that much. And Cham, he feels comfortable enough to move out on the map a little bit. He's got his 4th base running. He's got a darn good drone count against his opponent too.
Now, there's still no Spore Crawler over here, so Cham is actually just going to straight up evacuate out of the third base, interestingly enough. Might lose an Overlord over here, but the Hydra's going to be able to chase those Phoenix at least over to the main base. Got to be careful with those Hydras, make sure they're not too segmented off, since they will be vulnerable targets for these Phoenix to pick off.
I tell you what, these Phoenix are definitely doing a little bit of damage here. Hasn't lost one yet in this little attack. Now, getting out of here, that might be another story, but Cham, he has to balance where he puts his Hydras in this. This is a nice, nifty win for GunGFuBanDa. Yeah. And while all this has been going off too, he's not making drones. He's having to get out the Hydras to deal with these Phoenix. So GunGFuBanDa is actually catching back up in the economy.
Yeah, he was down to 36, 37 workers, and now already back up to 45, making 3 probes at a time. And these Phoenix! Okay, well, a couple of those Phoenixes do go down, and that was his way of sort of controlling the pace. This loses another one. I think 5 is like the bare minimum to still get some damage done.
He just lost another one too. This unit count just went up, and we didn't even see it. So I think a Phoenix just flew into his opponent there, and that was definitely not Top Gun flying. That was that was a lot of losses. Also, these minerals taken out in the middle by this drone here. So Cham, he's made the path of attack shorter, like we talked about at the start, and this is a lot of Zerg marching across the map. And GunGFu's trying to get prepared.
That one stasis craft, he's hoping that he can catch a bunch of these lings. It actually creates a little bit of a force field there and adds in a couple of extra force fields. Segments off a few of these Hydras, keeping that Immortal alive just barely, as more Immortals are going to be popping out. Every single second that GunGFuBanDa can buy is going to be more Immortals for this defense, but those lings are going to come out of the stasis very soon. The Phoenix come in to try and lift up some of the Hydras, and it seems like he's getting really close to defense. The links start popping out, they're going to absorb some of the damage, and it just really doesn't seem like Cham has enough anymore. GG gets called. GunGFuBanDa takes the first game.
That is not the expected result after he lost 25 probes and had everything shut down, and he looked really, really in a terrible spot. But I think there's a few things there that I talked about it before the games, actually. Cham makes a lot of units, like a lot of battle units, and it's not necessarily for all-ins. He just plays almost overly safe a lot of the time, and we saw them used to, like, great use there, killing the 25 probes, but that kind of stuff, it's not what you can't get away with being so safe, because, you know, often people ask, like, what's the best way to deal with something? Like, if I'm very, very safe, then I'm good against that one attack kind of thing, but then you're so far behind against everything else, and the double Stargate play, even the lack of, like, Spore at the third made stuff difficult, so he needed the Hydras on the low ground as opposed to just getting everything in the main. He just made life difficult for himself.
Yeah, when you're in those sort of situations as a Zerg player, how do you find the opportunity to finally safely move out versus the Phoenix? Because as you were saying, you know, the Hydras, of course, having to be made just to defend and everything, but then you never really get the opportunity to attack. Do you just sort of say, well, I'm just going to make more drones instead, over-drone through the losses that I'm taking? Or is there some way to try and get up the safety defenses?
If there's one thing that Stargate players and double Stargate players absolutely are scared of, and it's why it went out of the meta quite some time ago, it's Nidus play. So any kind of Nidus springing up, the Roaches, the Queens, even going for offensive Spore Crawlers. And the thing is, there was no Roach Warren on the field. It was pure Lynx who was kind of scared. And there was no Roach Warren against like the possibility of the Adepts coming. It was just a lot of Lings, then straight into Hydras. So I really feel that GunGFuBanDa completely bamboozled Cham this game. And that's a rough one for Cham, because I really felt that that counterattack was the one thing, his saving grace to getting back into it, but then the Phoenix use was very good. It was patient play by GunGFu, and if he can remove that middle stage of the game where he takes all that damage, he's going to be looking good in this series, man.
Yeah, it really seems like GunGFuBanDa has a good read on how Cham has been playing. I wonder if that does go back to that first series they played, which he ended up losing, and now he's kind of made his adjustments. But here we go, moving into game number 2. And we're starting up in the top left-hand corner of the map, top of the blue Zerg player. He is Team Chivo's Cham.
And sporting over in the bottom right, representing Germany itself, it is GunGFuBanDa. And I got to tell you, he definitely impressed me that game, especially with the fact that he was willing to go double Stargate against a player that is willing to make a lot of units early on, because a lot of players have styles, and I'm not quite sure what GunGFuBanDa's is yet. I get to play him a little bit, but I just feel he's a pretty solid all-round Protoss, honestly. And, you know, this game, this is a map that's pretty good for DTs, pretty good for Archon drops, might be pretty good for Stargate again. The thing is, Protoss can do a lot of things in this matchup.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, if I recall correctly, but GunGFuBanDa has been one of those really diverse players that was very much not afraid to get involved in like the cannon rushes and stuff versus a lot of Zerg players back in the day. I remember him making a lot of the kind of big late game carrier transitions and playing macro games. So he definitely has a diverse set of builds under his belt from the past, but so he decides to throw out this game. Double Stargate is usually not something you're doing lots of games in a row unless it's kind of a, I gotcha, you wouldn't expect this a second time.
If you know that your opponent's weak against it, though, and doesn't know how to capitalize on it, you can definitely pull it out again. And that game isn't truly indicative of, like, seeing that your opponent doesn't know what to do. Because often in StarCraft, you can make choices that you don't know if they're bad yet, right? They end up being pretty poor choices. Now, obviously, if Cham can whip out like the Roach and Nidus kind of play, that can definitely keep his opponent quite honest, because yeah, the fact that he went for double Stargate, was taking an early third with it all, and then double Robo immediately after, like, it was all very textbook, like the way that you want the game to go, but it didn't feel like Cham was ever really making it that difficult for GunGFuBanDa to really get away with that.
So would you like to see more of those sort of Nidus Worm plays to really put on the early pressure, or? One
thing that I see from Serral that always instills in me, like, wow, I have faith in, like, the really great, the true great players, is when he knows he can kill somebody with a Nidus, he'll just pop one up, because he knows, like, okay, this attack will land in, like, 45 seconds time. My opponent will not be able to hold it at all. And he makes very good reads in that regard. And it also, like, a player that can do everything against you, it's a lot more scary. Now, I don't know how good of a read GunGfu has on Cham. I'm not the most familiar with his style in PV or ZvP, but I do know that, yeah, he likes to be overly defensive, so being greedy against that kind of player or whipping something out like kind of crazy like a double Stargate, it's definitely good against him.
Yeah. We end up seeing GunGFuBanDa with, of course, that ICAM just scouting around for the third base. He doesn't really get into the main base or anything with the Adept, decides to pull back, as a lot of pros players like to be a bit safer with that first Adept, and he's going to be going for the Phoenix follow-up here and straight into another Oracle. We'll see what he goes into after that, though, because like we were saying, you can go into the double Stargate if you feel like there's an opportunity there, but there are absolutely a lot of different ways that pros players have figured out how to transition from here.
I gotta tell you, Fear Dragon, if I didn't know better, I'd say I was watching the exact same game again almost. Like the Phoenix kills the Overlord in the same spot. The second Overlord, by the way, that's kind of weird sending 2 Overlords at your opponent there, because like he gets the scout off, it just means he's almost sacking the second Overlord too, which you see here, GunGfu went immediately for it.
Yep.
So that shows me that he's kind of learning his opponent, like he's even just how he scouts. A lot of Overlords only, or a lot of Zergs only use 1 Overlord to do that. He's immediately lost 2, so going into this game, it's a bit problematic. Just get to see the Oracle follow up though, that's kind of it.
Seeing that Oracle means that you know you got to have your Spore Crawlers done in time. You even might have a bit of a sense of where that Oracle might be headed first. So if it's headed over to the third base, you might want to get those Queens over there. And of course, this is one of those maps where the third base can feel a little bit far away if you don't have that creep joined, and it'll take a while for those Queens to get around. But this Ling counterattack over here is doing some damage. Looks like 1 or 2 Adepts might end up falling over there, but the third base probe is the big thing, and he does manage to keep that alive. Oracle pushes that back, third base planted down.
Honestly, these units, these Zerglings that went across the map and like killed 1 Adept kind of thing, yeah, they kept the other Oracle at home and used a little bit of energy. But if I'm GunGFuBanDa, I look at that, I'm like, this is 7 drones that are not mining in his base right now. Like, that's actually quite good for me. And you see the worker counts are pretty close, and the Zerg isn't super far climbing ahead in supply, which is what you would normally find. So GunGFuBanDa, he's pretty quick on the third base, gets the Robo, the Forge, the Twilight Council. In fact, he's getting the whole family of Protoss tech here. So I think he's just feeling comfortable against Cham's style.
Yeah, I mean, that is quite literally one of every single piece of Protoss tech. So going to be able to get up all sorts of ways to continue the pressure. But these Oracles, speaking of pressure, are getting 4 more worker kills, keeping both of them alive. The Spore Caller target firing down the high health Oracle as well. So 2 more drones end up going down. A Revelation tossed up as well. And there's the third Oracle coming forward.
I tell you, Ravi, like Protosses, they've got new tricks up their sleeves. And King's Cove is a map where the minerals they're against the edges of the map at this third base and at the natural, meaning the mineral lines are much more exposed on this map. So going for these air units to dart in and out. And look, he shows him this over here. So he's like, okay, I have to look here, right? Comes in over here to do the stasis. I love the choice of stasis and not the other one, not using the pulsar beam, but Cham dealt with this pretty darn well. Just a little bit of denied mining.
Yeah, nice usage of the Queen over there, since that's just going to not have to worry about mining at all. You know, still gain that energy, but Hydras are on the way to finally push a lot of this stuff back. We saw Burrow started up for a split second there for Cham before he ended up, I think, canceling it. And instead, looks like it's just going to be going for the usual Hydra range, etc.
I even like how he sends the Phoenix in there to take the brunt of the first few Spore Crawler shots. Obviously, it's designed to lift up the Queen, so you take less damage, but GunGFuBanDa is definitely doing a lot of good things this game, and he's actually really equal in worker count too, which is really scary to see, because upgrades are on the way for him. He's got a lot of infrastructure being made too. Is he up to 2 Robos as well? Or I think he is as well, yeah.
2 Robos.
He's definitely in decent shape for making a really damn good army.
Yeah, we're only just now seeing those extra couple of gateways being added on, so there's going to be a huge boom in what looks like a GunGFuBanDa's kind of army supply soon. So Cham, who's only just now gotten up to a 67 worker count, he's added on that Baneling Nest, he's getting on Baneling speed, and it's just going to be a big Ling Baneling Hydra army. It is going to be a bit of a question, is that going to be enough for the power units that GunGFuBanDa has been pumping out?
And yeah, that is the question for sure. I do like the fact that he's droning up a lot now. He's getting Overlord speed as well, just so he can like get scouts in. And maybe that opens up the possibility for...
Is that hallucinated?
It is hallucinated. Now, I'm not really sure what he's doing over there. Like, he's not scouting much, and he's not really scaring his opponent with that. But +2 on the way, Storm on the way. We've got more stasis traps going down. I don't know whether these are defensive stasis traps or aggressive stasis traps.
Well, there's that move that you were talking about, and maybe even just clearing a pathway with the Warp Prism just to scout around, and if it does get scouted, then maybe scares his opponent a bit. Another hallucinated Warp Prism coming out. I think he's really trying to sell the story that he is going for this big attack, but maybe there's still Storm about halfway finished up, more Immortals popping on out. Is he just kind of faking an attack, or is this a real committed thing? He doesn't have a Warp Prism with this.
This reminds me of like the little boy cried wolf. You know, he sees one Warp Prism and it's a fake, and he sees a second Warp Prism, it's a fake, but the third one, that's the one that he kind of goes, ah, it's another fake, right? No, this guy's warping in 10 Zealots in your main base, and you see GunGFuBanDa. Oh, now he sees the real Warp Prism. So nice scouting by Cham. Like this is kind of one of those fortunate scouts, but getting that Overlord speed means he can really like spread these guys apart. Now, his drone count is seriously good, like 81 against 67. The thing is, he's going up to Spire Tech now with the Hive as well, so Broodlords are going to be his next weapon of choice, but GunGFuBanDa, he's getting a decent army together. But he is slowing down the game a little bit by going for the fourth when he is doing it, as opposed to just attacking. But the thing is, Cham does look pretty solid right now. Like his army, it is a tough one to beat, especially on creep.
Yeah, it also feels like GunGFuBanDa has been doing a great job with all those little pressures here and there in the Warp Prism and the Adept Harassment all coming in. It has basically taken away a lot of those big vulnerable points that Protoss players have, where Storm is still just being a researcher, +2 weapons is finishing up. And now we even see the Fleet Beacon being added on here for GunGFuBanDa. He's just not afraid of taking this into this hyper late game situation.
No, which is very funny to see. And the fact that he's adding Blink onto this makes me think that he's ready to fight against the Broodlords with Stalkers, but a Fleet Beacon is being added to a Dark Shrine. I tell you what, GunGFu just goes in stages when he wants to throw down all his tech.
Okay, we have some Lings coming in for the counter attack, or the side flank, and they go after some of those Side Templars, not quite able to kill them. As Zealots run straight into the Banelings, but look at that massive Warpin. Is going to finish. The Queen gets pushed back by the Zealots, so the big Warpin does finish in the main base. And if he does not protect that Greater Spire, he's going to be set so far back. But while he moves all of his units over to the main base, then the rest of the army is making its way forward.
I tell you what, we didn't see what was going on in the eyes of Cham, but there was a lot of hallucinated Warp Prisms, and the one that finally did get in, the real one, is causing havoc, and it's making Cham have to reposition everywhere. But I am still a little bit scared because GunGFuBanDa's, it's very weak if he does get flanked against all these Banelings.
Yeah, he's been able to force field out the army from that south side ramp, but we see a couple of Lings coming in from the north side. The force fields barely come out at the last second, but he is starting to run a little bit lower on that sentry energy. He still gets Storms and maybe zone out that army, taking out a couple of drones. But remember, all these Zealot Warpins, they are dying in an inefficient manner, trying to get some damage done, and now the Broodlords are morphing in.
I tell you what, I think Cham's holding on, and he's got a really good supply doing it. That Warp Prism being shut down is a huge momentum shift. That means no extra army units in your base. You can position just to hold off this outside attack, as opposed to the attack within.
Mothership on the way, and those extra couple Stargates getting ready for that big transition for the big air army. Even +1 air weapons on the way. Do you think GunGFuBanDa should just still continue to be attacking over here? Or is this getting a little bit dicey for how long he's sticking around?
Well, as soon as he sees these Broodlords, he's got to get out of there, but he's kind of gone in here.
Oh, he has to recall now.
He does have to recall. The thing is, this isn't like a one-punch thing. He is dealing damage at this 5th base of Cham, so he's distracting on one side, and I don't think Cham... Okay, he has realized the Overseer's in there with the upgrade as well. Very, very quick. Maybe he can take out this hatchery and get out of there. He's trying to group up. He will lose quite a few units here.
The expensive ones too. The Immortals, the Archons. Those are hard to replace.
I'm very surprised that GunGFu wants to go to the late game. Wow, that is the luckiest DT if he did survive through all of that.
Yeah. Well, there's 3 Tempests on the way, and +1 weapons is almost done, but a decent chunk of the army there still was taken out for GunGFuBanDa, and Cham is... He's going to try and, I imagine, start making his gradual push across the map. But Broodlords are very slow. Takes a while to get over there, and he needs to make sure he keeps enough of those Hydras alive to deal with these Tempests now.
My big question for GunGFuBanDa is he good against late game Zerg? Now, Cham, I don't think he's got any Infestors on the field, which is kind of a... I don't know if it's the unit that he likes to use, because I know he likes to use one control group for a lot of his army kind of thing, so they do get a little bit tricky, but right now, he's just going for a bit of a power play. A lot of anti-air in the Corruptors, the Broodlords to deal the damage on the ground, takes out an Oracle before things happen, but the thing is, GunGFu's getting a really good anti-Broodlord squad together. Like, this is going to be really tough if Cham doesn't transition into Infestors.
Now, Cham does catch a lot of the Zealots on the bottom left-hand side, but he doesn't see that Warp Prism warping on the top right, so he's going to go in, potentially for a big attack. The Corruptors leading the charge, a couple of Hydras getting caught by the Stasis Trap, and the rest of the army is making this long loop around the north side, trying to regroup, and he loses a lot of the Overseers in the process. Remember, those are important for seeing that those units under the Mothership.
And those Zealots, they have a dream. The Broodlord's caught out in the middle of the map too against the Tempest. Cham kind of falling apart here. You see that his whole army is marching together. So these Zealots, they've dealt quite a bit of economic damage, but mainly they exposed the Broodlords because he 1A'd back home. A little bit of F2 going on there.
Oh, the Broodlords, the slowest units of that Zerg army, are going to have such a hard time fending for themselves. Almost all of the Broodlords have gone down at this point. The Corruptors try and dive in to take out that Mothership. They do so. But is there actually enough Zerg army left over? A lot of Corruptors left over. They should be able to take out a good chunk of these Tempests, but the Archons starting to deal the damage, and these Zealots doing a ton of damage to the run-by. That low health hatchery is not going to last very long, Ben.
GunGFu's everywhere, and GG is called. Cham, within the blink of an eye, he got totally tore apart by one little run-by of Zealots. Then the extra Zealots followed up too. Cham, he fell apart against GunGFu, man. Like, he was looking pretty solid, but he looked also quite limited in his playstyle.
It did seem like he was struggling every single time, like you were saying, the multi-pronged harassment was coming forward. But GunGFuBanDa did a great job, because when you're playing in those behind situations, it can be sort of frustrating. You're sort of looking for the glimmer of hope, especially when you see, oh god, they're already on the Broodlords, and my army's over here. It's trapped in the natural. The recall didn't get all my units, but he did a really, really nice job of utilizing the Warp Prisms and the hallucinated Warp Prism you were talking about.
I really love the hallucination.
Those are
like,
nice.
The fact that he was just like sending them out to try and like convince his opponent, like, oh, they're all hallucinations, man, and then the one real one gets in. That caused a lot of havoc, but that wasn't the game-winning move. No. Like the way that he kept back with his Tempest and like picked off all the Corruptors and then like forced the units ahead, like back home. That was really, really cool by him.
Really, really well done, and of course that does mean that GunGFuBanDa is going to be the player that advances on from the group. Now Cham, for those who don't know and are big fans of Cham, you don't have to fret too much because he is still going to be in the tournament, but he's going to the knockout brackets.
And we will hear from our winner right now with Sue on the main stage.
Very much, guys. Congratulations, GunGFuBanDa. You're moving forward with a 2-0 victory in this Deciders match. And this is pretty interesting because Cham was actually someone you played earlier in this group. Back then, he won 1-2. So what was different this time around?
Like the series before, I was like, if I play standard, I'm gonna win. And in the first series, I did some cheesy builds and it didn't work out. So I knew if I play standard, I can win easily. That's exactly what I did, and it went good for me, yeah.
In PvZ specifically, we don't see double Stargate Phoenix used as often as before, but you seem to feel really comfortable with it. So what is the reasoning for that?
Like the counter to it is Nidus, but many Zergs forget the Nidus that it's still Imba. So I think I really like it. Like you got control of the map and can move around. So that's why I chose the strategy. Yeah.
Well, you're looking really good right now, and now moving forward, it's going to be Group Stage 3. You're already in the top 40. So overall, how are you feeling about your performance thus far and your condition?
I wasn't in an offline event for a long time. Like I stopped playing. Now I'm back again. I'm feeling pretty confident, and I hope I do my best and get far as I can. And yeah, I'm feeling good.
Sounds good. That's amazing to hear. It's really great to see you on the main stage with this 2-0 victory. Colaris, back to you.
That's right, GunGFuBanDa, of course, make sure he gets himself to the next group stage. Unfortunately for Cham, he will fall down to the knockout bracket, and where, of course, it will be extremely grueling against all of the opponents that are down there. Joining me, Rotterdam, you may have seen his shoulder sneaking on in here from there. Whoa!
There it is.
Oh, just show us a little bit more of that shoulder. And then, of course, we have Maynard as well. Gentlemen, as of things have gone on so far, GunGFuBanDa 2-0 against Cham. A little bit unexpected for me, Rotterdam.
Yeah, after he lost the first series, right? Like, I thought it was always going to be quite close between these two. GunGFu plays a lot at the moment on the European ladder. I mean, he's up to like 6.6, 6.7k. That's super legit, right? That's where all the big boys are. So I figured he could win. But the way he won, I didn't necessarily expect it. I'm like, the first game was like, oh, double target Phoenix. Like, my man, I like where he's going with it. And he's like, oh my god, he's killing so many queens. It's going so good. And then he loses 22 probes against a bunch of links for really no reason at all. Like, he could have maybe lost a couple at his third, but he should have never lost all those gateway units out in the open. I'm like, okay, this is getting really weird and scrappy. And then Cham is like, well, I'm just going to all-in you with my Hydras. I'm like, really? 3-base all-in and Thunderbird and like slow Hydras as well? It was kind of a weird and wonky series. Even that second game, in the end, it went from 0 to 100 real quick suddenly, but still very well done by the German.
Yeah, a little messy from Cham. If you want to just TLDR that series, I think it's just like Cham making a few mistakes and GunGFuBanDa not letting him getting away with it. I think.
C+ could do better, I think.
Yeah, 6.5 out of 10.
There you go. Yeah, I like that meme. Yeah. Of course, though, as that goes on, for Cham going down to the knockout bracket, again, before you joined us here, Rotterdam, I was mentioning to Maynard, 2017, that was really the year where Cham was on everyone's lips. It's now getting a little bit kind of turbulent for Cham.
Yeah, he's struggling in putting a whole bunch of good results in a row, right? Like, he's still capable of beating some very good players in the occasional best of 3, but I'm with you. It's been a while since we really saw like a proper tournament run, you know? Where is that top 16 appearance? Where is that top 8 appearance potentially? And I mean, if you do really want to make your name in this Western scene, then yeah, you gotta have to squeeze into a quarterfinals once in a while. It's really freaking hard, but we know the Cham is really freaking good as well, but it definitely doesn't seem to be like really going his way at the moment. Like, yeah, he's getting his wins here and there, but it's always the occasional best of 3. It's never 4 or 5 in a row anymore. And like, not to be too critical, but I don't really understand why he's trying to end the game on 3 bases on Thunderbird. Like, obviously GunGFu is doing the right thing here. He's getting 2 batteries and a cannon. I love the force fields, by the way. Those links, those were almost like an extra force field, but in the end, this is a very easy hold. Look at the HP on these Immortals. Was this a close hold, guys? That's 7 very healthy Immortals.
Massive value from those Immortals, Maynard.
Certainly, and we got the final moments here of King's Cove, where once again the Prism showing itself, getting that warp in denied, but that's not the only time that warpism shows up. He gets plenty of damage done there in the main. And this little weird recall here, leaving one man behind, unfortunately.
This was so funny, because first it's like, GunGFu, you've got so much money, and then a little bit later I'm like, Cham, you've got so much money. I'm like, Cham, and then like Zealots are just ravaging everything anywhere, but like, it's incredibly painful for a pro gamer to leave a game with like 2.5k minerals in the bank. This is very GG's, 2.7k minerals, 1,000 gas. I'm not saying that if he spends that, he wins the game, but it's safe to say that things could have been a lot better.
Yeah, maybe like a lava inject issue, or just because he's just taking damage on the hatcheries. It's kind of hard to know.
Maybe. And that does it for that series as a whole. We may take a little bit of a look at some of the Tobii eye tracking things that are going on here as well in that series, how it was going down. But for the most part, you know, for GunGFuBanDa, he even mentioned it in his interview as well, you know, not playing for a few, well, not relevant, not present for a few years in regards, but this is a good result for him, and he's feeling confident coming into this tournament. It's not too bad at all, right?
No, he's one of those guys that I think a lot of people won't be super pleased to see him in his group stage, because like he also doesn't play in all the online tournaments, but you know he's good, and they eventually figure out like, oh, he's playing on the death barcode, or he's playing on his main for like the Challenger ladder qualifier. And like I said, he's really high up there on the ladder, and I think he does things a tiny bit different than most other European Protosses. In general, like, he is a pretty passive Protoss, and a lot of people actually don't like playing against passive Protosses. But then at the same time, he still sprinkles in like the double Stargate stuff. So I think he's going to be an underdog in the majority of his groups, in the third group stage that is. But I absolutely do think that he's an unpleasant player to have in your group as well.
Some of the final moments here from this game as a whole, as he's able to just assimilate a lot of the information coming in. And actually before this, you saw that fantastic shield wall off that was going down.
And this is like, even though you'll see those pro gamers dart their eyes around and sort of have that metronome, like you mentioned in the last series, or they have that cycle in their brain to look at that minimap, 100% on that engagement, because he knew that was the end. So that's basically what you get from that one.
Nothing else to really take away.
What else are you going to look at?
Yeah, exactly. So actually there were other series going on.
Easy now.
There were other series going on.
There was, and I had a very interesting game number 3 between Hate Me and Puppy Joe. Puppy Joe is now one of my favorite Protosses in the whole world. I would love to be able to show this one off to you guys. I've got it paused at a very important moment in game number 3.
I don't think we will be able to show the actual.
Tell me.
Oh, okay. So you can regale us with a tale.
Damn it! I had everything set up. Okay, so Puppy Joe goes to fake.
It seems like we can actually.
We can
take a look.
Well, then take it away. Let's go.
Yeah, let's maybe jump into.
So I'll warm you guys up. So
we got Hate Me playing against what appears to be a cannon rush or some kind of pylon block here. But Puppy Joe has something ready for him down here. Bam, 4 gateways. 4 gateways. Look, back at home, nothing. All right, 16 probes on those minerals. I knew you'd love this, Roddy. I was like, Roddy, do you want me to spoil it? We'll save it for when it's live.
Oh,
Let's do it live.
that
So we
is
got
so
a
sick.
4 Zealot proxy gate here on a
It's
single
beautiful.
pylon. That's this pylon,
drones.
and he actually loses this pylon later and gets supply blocked off of it, by the way. But he still gets the W with his Zealot rally. This is actually like the most important part of the game.
What has Hate Me seen so far?
He's seen nothing. The
He's-
Overlord came a little bit
yeah.
southern, but then just pulled back, and now he's just sending that next Overlord out. And then it's all about the Zealots against the Queens and the drones. So Puppy Joe actually does end up winning this game. There's some nice micro here with the drones on the Queens to try and body block, but it's just Hate Me starts to engage with those drones, and now it's just already looking bad. Like he's lost 7
Yeah.
drones. And
These
Puppy
builds
Joe the
bring me
God, like
back, man,
at
like-
home, he's got absolutely nothing. He's just a single pylon
Dude,
back at home.
if the Overlord had gone
Oh.
about half a screen further down, it would have seen the gateways. By the way.
And
I feel
Hate
like-
Me is a legit Zerg, so this is like a
Yeah.
big 2-1 victory here for Puppy Joe, and the cojones on this young lad.
What's this? group stage
Vibranium
or-
balls.
Vibranium.
What
We
an
were
amazing-
losing our stuff back here.
Yeah,
It was good fun.
This
I'm
was
such a
knockout
fan.
bracket? Yes.
Yeah, it actually was.
Yeah, so that's the end of Hate Me. That's kind of unfortunate. Hate Me, an Austrian Zerg, who I think was really good a little while ago, but then he was forced to take a break because he had a lot of studying to do, he said. Now for the last 2 months, he's been going very hard at it, but unfortunately, it seems like it's not going to be enough. Man, Pappy Joe, he's got a lot of these weird, unique builds, man.
So cool.
Yeah.
Like, I actually played Pappy Joe once in a WCS qualifier,
Yeah.
and I'm like, it's really cool, Phoenix against Phoenix, and I got a Robo, right? But I'm like, it's Phoenix against Phoenix, I don't need this Robo. So I cancel my Robo at 80%, literally half a minute later, 3 DTs run on my Robo. I'm like, oh my god. And he had a
Papi.
Stargate, and he had Phoenixes as well. I'm like, where does he get the gas from?
Pappy Joe continues to deliver. Thank you
Delivering
very
fine
much.
cheese straight to your door.
All right. It's the groups, and we have the majority of our games played out. I think we're waiting on maybe 2 results, and that's about it from Groups A and Group B. One of the biggest surprises to me, Rotterdam, is Hearthstone going out last in his group.
Yeah, you don't often see Hearthstone go 0-2-0-4 in any group when it comes to, Western Starcraft. Maybe if you put in with like a Maru and an Inno or something, but in general in WCS circuit events, Hearthstone is always a force to be reckoned with. We kind of expect him to maybe make a top 16 appearance, but at least top 32. And if Hearthstone is in a group, he's always supposed to be a very tough opponent. So I'm totally with you there. 0-2-0-4
Yeah.
is very uncharacteristic. Can we take a look at Group G, by the way? Hellraiser, our Ukrainian Protoss,
Yeah.
just
Doing well.
winning that group, eh?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit before, man. It's just
Yeah.
such a good showing for a hometown hero, Mr. Hellraiser, Mr. Bogdan. And I think it was a 2-0 victory over Ephemeral as
Yep.
well, so quite convincing.
And actually quite nice for Utermal to finally win 2 series in a row against a top European Zerg. Or maybe like some people see Denver as like, yeah, he's really good, but he's not top. Sure, he's not Cyril Rayner, but Denver is very strong as well. So it's actually very good news for Utermal to finally get 2 best-of-3 victories in a row against that race that he's struggling against so freaking much.
That brings us neatly on to our next series here for WCS Summer, and it will be Hearthstone going up against Skillus. And this is a knockout bracket match. So
right.
the loser of this will be done here for WCS Summer.
And think back of WCS Spring. Little Skillus was one of the biggest names, I think, to come out of that event. Sure, maybe he didn't make like a quarterfinal, but Skillus did go very far. He made it into the money. It was one hell of a showing of the young Russian Protoss. This time going up against Hearthstone in round 4 of the knockout bracket already.
Yeah.
Ay.
So obviously in Twitch chat as well, you can vote who you want to win or who you think is your favorite as a whole, Skillus or Hearthstone. So make sure to vote now, and we'll show those results in just a few moments' time. But Maynard, Hearthstone in this round. It's,
It's just a little bit unfortunate to see Hearthstone already this early. You know, with day 1 in that knockout bracket. This is a group stage 3 guy, to say the least, in my eyes.
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate. Like, even Skillus with a great showing last in spring. Both these guys down here in knockout just doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, last time I think Skillus actually finished in the round of 24, where he lost that close series against Massa, but he gave us amazing games. To put things in perspective, the round before WCS Spring, that's only 2 months ago, guys, or even less. Skillus 3-0 TLO, someone who's casually made it into Group Stage 3.
Yep.
And Hearthstone last time finished top 16 in this event, where he eventually lost to Time. So these are 2 guys that had a very successful spring, and for one of them, summer is already ending here.
And to think about it, I mean, Time's run was stopped by Cyril.
Yeah.
So, Hearthstone would have ended up probably going up against Cyril, and maybe that would have ended there. But a round of 8 on your resume looks a whole lot better when it comes to the stack lineups that we have here for WCS 2019. So Any thoughts on the maps, or it's PvP? I mean,
Yeah, mirror matchup, so I guess there's just sort of like, people just have
Sure.
a favorite map
Yeah,
kind of
for
thing.
sure.
It's not like there's a balance issue there. Skilless is looking very cozy there, like he's at home. He's probably wearing my similar kind of footwear at the moment.
Like, I think for most people, Hearthstone is obviously a favorite here, and I can get behind that just because he's way more experienced than
Yeah.
little Skillers. But I think Skillers made a really good impression on us in spring, and even against Masa, he's like, I wasn't even that nervous. He's like, I think I just made a couple of big mistakes, and maybe he played a bit better than me, and he was very motivated and excited for this event. This is a tough draw for Hearthstone, man, and like, this is like, yeah, maybe he's a favorite, but Skillers is a very good European Protoss. PvP, they're gonna proxy each other. There's gonna be a couple build order advantages here and there. One person might go for the Robo, while the other one goes Blink, or your Stargate does get spotted, your Stargate gets unpowered early on. PvP can be a pretty fragile matchup, especially with the way a lot of these crazy Eastern European Protosses play it. Yeah, I wouldn't be too happy if I was Hearthstone going up against this young kid.
No, this is absolutely quite far from a free win for him. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of people would favor Hearthstone, no doubt. A lot of people that watch Starcraft on the regular, us included, but this guy is no slouch. Like,
No.
Skilless is quite the wall here for Hearthstone.
PvP in Europe, especially in Korea too. I feel like for
Oh god,
it's
Korean PvP is sticking out like a sore thumb out there for the Blizzard team. Just sort of like, what do we do here
Wow.
with this one?
I mean, chat, 84-16. You
Yeah,
guys
it's
are
not surprising.
crazy.
Not surprising.
You
but
guys are crazy.
yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Well, it's time to go to a break now here for WCS Summer, and when we return, Skilless goes up against Hearthstone in the knockout bracket to see who advances on and who is eliminated.